Welcome back to Eclectic Conversations with me, your host, Kimberly Correa. Today's special guest is one of my very good friends, Alex Adkins. He is an amazing wedding videographer who has built a thriving business. In this podcast episode, we'll be discussing his story, ideal clients, marketing, and even branding. I am so excited for him to share this knowledge and expertise with us today. So let's get into the episode. Today, I am joined by Alex Adkins of Alex Adkins Creative. He is one of my very best friends, and I always tell people that I am the founder of AAC because of how strongly I wanted him to start his own business. I saw so much potential in him, and he has absolutely been crushing it since he started. So I am so excited to have you on my podcast because you are someone that I am just so inspired by. Your business has flourished since I met you, and I think you have mastered branding and marketing to your ideal client, and you did it very, very early on. So I really want to talk about that today. But before we do, just tell us a little bit about your story, about yourself. I want people to hear your story because I do think it is inspiring, and it's just so different than my story and other people's stories. So yeah, just tell us a little bit about you.
Well, Kim, you are always so nice to me. And I don't think I'm just counting down the conversations before my head isn't going to be able to fit through the door. I'm super excited to be here. I'm super excited to be here with you. You know, your mother for AAC and everything in between. But yeah, I think starting out, just as a preface to my background, I come from my degree and all through high school and growing up and stuff was all music and theater centered. And so I really want to encourage people who feel like they can't do something to just take the leap and do it anyways, because I feel like everyone says this, but I truly feel like if I can do it, anyone can. I didn't have any practical business, classes or whatever. I literally took costume design classes and things like that. And so I truly believe that if you are passionate about something, that you can let that passion lead you to where you want to be and where you want and help you build the kind of life that you want.
I
so that being said,
with that.
Yeah, it's all about, it's not about what degree you have. It's not about what classes, you took or working at this big corporate whatever, because at the end of the day, every business is going to do things differently. And those businesses, whether you're working for someone else, or even more so if you're working for yourself, they're all going to teach you how they want to do things their way, or you're going to come up with your own systems and learning how you want to do things. And the best education that you're going to get is not in the classroom.
And just doing it, I think, is the best, just going for it and doing it yourself. And it's crazy because I watch a lot of Shark Tank. I don't know if you do or not.
Yes.
All of the entrepreneurs that are sitting on there, investing in other people, don't have business degrees from Harvard. They don't have this college education, if any. Actually, I don't know it. I don't think any of them did. And so just seeing that as inspiration too, has been great for me because I am a college dropout, and I'm always I'm just going to be a photographer and that's it. But I have other dreams and other aspirations for my life. So I think just following your intuition and just kind of going for it is definitely worth it.
For sure. And I do think that in some capacity learning about, because also if you're studying business at a university, you're not learning how to run a small business. You're not learning how to run a creative business. I don't know how much it would help anyways, other than your business degree is allowing you the opportunity to get in front of people, which I do think is probably the most
Yes.
important part about business, because you're making those connections.
Yes.
And like I heard this recently from another videographer talking about how, like, yes, it's important to know people, but what's more important is who knows you and who is going to be willing and who is going to say your name in a room that you're not in.
Yeah, and know yourself to even
Yeah.
get to that point.
Hmm. So,
And
um,
also, I just want to clarify, I am not anti-college. Like, my boyfriend has 2 degrees now. Like,
yeah,
I am very pro-college,
yeah,
but like for some things, I just don't think that you need to go to college
yeah.
for.
And I think everyone's journey is different. Mine was super unique because I went in to my undergrad wanting to study music education and be a choir teacher, and like you have to have a degree to be like a teacher, right?
Exactly,
And
yes.
then 6 weeks into that I was like, this is not for me. How can I combine my love of like music with theater, my other passion, but I don't want to be a performer. Like I just don't want like a degree for that or whatever. So how can I do something that's not performing that involves music, and really just like through like combining all of those like check marks and stuff, it really came out to like being like studying sound design. So that's kind of like where
Yes.
where I fell into. So kind of getting into like my journey a little bit. I went to college. I have a BFA in technical theater production, is technically like the degree, with like an unofficial emphasis in sound design. So I studied a lot of like I took a lot of technical direction classes, costume design, lighting design, um, stagecraft classes where you just like learn how, to construct things, and you learn how to use different tools like physical, like, machinery, things like that. So I'm very well versed in like a workshop or something, and like using those power tools and hanging lights and running cables for all of the things. um, and then about halfway through my college career, I actually got involved in a college a cappella group. I actually like was one of the people that helped start it, because I had missed like singing and performing with people and stuff. So I did that just as like an extracurricular, and it like um, took off really quickly, and I was like super excited by it and interested in it and passionate about it. So that led me into like an internship slash my first job out of college, which was working for a small production company that specialized in a cappella music. So we would go and we would record other, college and high school and even middle school or semi-professional, whatever, a cappella groups that were wanting to record a single or record an album or whatever. And so I was essentially like a studio recording engineer. So I would record all of these people singing and stuff. And then I was also a live sound engineer because I did have experience with that. So I would go, these a cappella groups would be putting on concerts. So I would set up all the speakers, run the soundboard, do all the 16 to 20, anywhere between like 16 and 24 microphones, doing that. So that was like very obviously like audio heavy. And then, okay, let me step back just a second. So the summer before my senior year of college, I had done the theater, like obviously like all through like the school year, and then during the last 2 summers I had also done like theater internships, and I was just kind of like not really burnt out, but I was just kind of like, I was like, I want to break out and do something that's not theater, like whatever. So I had an internship with like a small marketing firm that had like a wedding videography department. And so that's where I learned how to use a camera. That's where I filmed my first wedding. And I was like, cool, like this is fun. Didn't think much of it. Had a good time. Was working with just like media in general, doing graphic design, web design, those kinds of things.
Which is crazy. Are you like, do you consider yourself like multi-passionate? Like, do you have
Yeah,
like, okay.
Yeah, I would say so. I think like I have never really landed in like one box. Like there was always this feeling of like almost kind of like jack of all trades type like
Okay.
within me, because I do like just enjoy so many different things, and I'm a firm believer that like one creative medium is going to inspire another. So or even not, something that we might deem as conventionally creative,
Yes.
like doing things with my hands or building things or whatever, like helped me, view music in a different way. And so just like all of these things kind of coming together to like help create like the creative person that I am. And there was quite a bit of time during my undergrad where I felt kind of inferior in the way that I wasn't picking a specialty, because
Yes.
it's very like
It's not the
especially in
norm.
the theater world, they want people to like pick a specialty. But I was lucky enough to where like my undergrad program was not set up that way, because they didn't want people to like feel like they had to, choose to be a lighting designer at 18 years old.
Yeah,
Like
like
that's kind
settle
of,
for one thing
yeah, that's like
forever.
kind of ridiculous. And so
It's
kind of the
insane.
mentality behind that was like, we had enough flexibility to be able to play with and like try different things. And, if you wanted to pursue something deeper, then you would go and get like a master, like an MFA in lighting
I see.
design or whatever.
Okay.
So anyways, jumping back ahead, I did that internship, did my senior year of college, went and worked for that production company for almost 2 years after I graduated. And then in the fall of 2018, going into 2019, I left that job and moved into working on cruise ships, because that's a really popular thing within like the theater professional industry, like trying essentially getting a foot in the door to have some experience, and then you can use that as leverage when you go and audition, or you're trying to get jobs in whatever major city you're trying to be in, or working on tours or whatever. So I did that, and I was working essentially as like a stagehand, and running the shows, setting up bands all over the cruise ships, all of that crazy stuff. Got to travel all around the world, which was really awesome. Really hard work, really just like long days. I tell people that I feel like I felt the whole human like emotion spectrum every day, because it was just so intense, but met just some amazing people and just really had a great time until COVID hit and I was on the cruise ships. And I won't get into that. I feel like I've talked about this so much and it's just kind of like boring
We
at this
know.
point. I'm like, we know. So yeah, I was on the cruise ship, and they at the beginning for a couple of months we couldn't get off because no one knew what was going on with COVID, whatever. And one of the first biggest outbreaks was on a cruise ship. So I think that's why everyone was extra apprehensive of people on cruise ships in general, because it's like a little, incubator essentially.
Yes.
So after that happened and we eventually were able to get off, I moved back in with my parents because I didn't have, my own place on land, or as crazy as that sounds. So moved back in with my parents, and that's when I actually went back to that company that I had interned at, and I was like, "Hey, do you guys have any like extra work, contract work, whatever? Just like, do you need an extra hand? I'm just looking for some type of work while I figure out what my next move is." And they were like, "Well, actually, the person that's in charge of our wedding videography department is actually leaving. Like, would you want to step in and take on that role? Like, we've worked with you. We know what kind of person you are. We think you'd be a good fit for this." So I was like, yeah, it's 2020. People are losing their jobs left and right, and I'm able to find a job doing something I like. Let's do it. So I started that job in the wedding industry, and I basically did go full time in the wedding industry in 2020, which is so crazy to think about.
So did I.
And so just started there, and really just from there started learning everything about, essentially it started off learning how they were doing things. I didn't know much. I had never really worked in sales before.
Yeah,
I had
almost
done a
like the
little bit of,
business side of it.
yeah. So what was interesting was the position that I was in. How it worked was like I essentially ran like the wedding videography department in this marketing firm basically by myself. And then we had a team of in-house like editors and videographers that would essentially work on all of the projects, because we were still doing a lot of commercial work, going and doing, social media things for this company or web design for this company, taking photos for this company. So we had some other departments, and then we also had videographers and editors that would kind of work on it all. So we had videographers that would, do wedding films, interspersed with their other projects, whatever that kind of looked like. So I was really in charge of running all of the business stuff, doing all, making all of the client calls, meeting other vendors, and managing, kind of like doing like the project management of it all, to keep like everyone on track and that kind of stuff. And it was great. I learned a lot really quickly. I really figured out kind of like my voice, at least within that business, like how to talk to people and connect with people and things like that. But the more it, well, let me pause really quick and say that, like, once I got a little bit deeper into it, I went to my boss, who was like the owner of the company. I was like, I really think we need to go through a rebrand, because like this brand hasn't been touched in 10 years, I think. And we really just need to like update, everything.
Hmm.
So I was kind of in charge of that, was working with two of the other guys in house on like kind of what we wanted the vibe to be, all of that good stuff. And it was great. It was really fun going through the rebrand and experiencing that. Everyone was really like receptive and positive. And then that was really kind of my official stepping into like, okay, this is like me leading this in a way. So really going back out and connecting with vendors that maybe we had fallen out of touch with or whatever, getting to know them in a way that was like, hey, like, I'm the one in charge of this now. This is kind of what this looks like, whatever. And so really right after that officially launched was like in the fall of 2020, I want to say. Yeah, of
Okay.
2020, fall, like early winter, I guess. And then early January was when I met you for the first time, because we were doing a bridal fair, like a wedding fair at a venue, and our tables were just right next to each other.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
the stars aligned
they
in
truly did.
everything. I always say how crazy it is how we met each other like at the exact same, like,
Yeah.
I don't know, like a really great time for both of us, and like we even moved together,
Yes.
and
And
everything was just aligning for you at that point. I
yeah.
think it's just
And
like
I,
looking back at your story, I'm like, oh my god, like you had that internship, and then you like came back to that internship and learned all this
yeah.
stuff for business,
hmm
and like everything was supposed to happen exactly the way it happened,
Yeah.
and that's just so cool to see.
It's so crazy how like each step, like you can like start to connect the dots. And like, yeah, I'm not learning, I'm not working in the theater industry right now, but like my background, like in audio, allowed me to have such a huge skill set that so many videographers are afraid of, because a lot of them are, audio is like um the biggest kicker when it comes to like people trying to like learn videography. um And so we were set up next to each other. We talked a little bit. I was like, man, I really like this girl. She's really cool. Her vibe is cool. Like, I love her little setup. Her photos are gorgeous. And so we just connected, and I just wanted to like partially like connect for like that business to like have a relationship, but really I wanted to connect selfishly because I wanted to be your friend. And I was like, I feel like this girl just like, it just like seems right. Like I just feel like I'm like being pulled to her, and I feel like she just has like such good energy, honestly, like different energy from like anyone that I've like ever experienced and like typically been around. Because I mean, you typically get like theater people who are so like extroverted and like crazy and stuff, and your vibe was and still is just like very calm and cool, collected. Like nothing is like, or how it seems at least, like a huge deal, and like you're able to like roll with the punches. And I was like, I feel like there's just like so much to learn from
Oh,
her.
oh, I like this. I'm
So
like, stop, I'm blushing.
so we set up like, I think, a meeting, um when I was still there, and you like came over to the office and we were like talking and stuff. And I
Yes.
think you like said something, or like, or I don't know, remember exactly how the conversation goes, but I remember leaving that conversation thinking, I think I might need to leave this job and do my own thing.
I don't even know
And
what we talked about during that meeting. I
I don't
remember it,
remember
but
a
I don't even remember
ton.
why.
One thing that I remember is when you were talking about, I think you had just booked Sydney and Kevin, and you were
Okay.
talking about Big Sur, and I was like, oh, that sounds so fun. Like, all of this stuff.
Yes.
And then we started slowly becoming friends, like outside of like my job. And it
Yes.
was, and like once we, and I was trying to be like very careful because it was hard for me to like navigate the lines in some ways. But I was like, I really just want to tell Kim that like I want to start my own thing. So because I know that she can help me basically. And so we started becoming friends. And I think at one point I just like told you that I was doing it. And like, I think from there, our friendship just like launched.
Blossomed.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was a really long explanation, kind of like of my backstory, like getting into the wedding industry and stuff. But I mean, it's been literally like I think like 2 years to the day almost that I started my business,
Which
and
now is crazy.
unofficially,
Yeah.
I'm like because I started in 2021, so I'm now in my like third year, I guess, in a way,
Okay. Yeah.
because I did, you know, 3 quarters of 2021, all of 2022, and now doing 2023 is kind of like how I'm like thinking about like, okay, I'm in my third year of business. Like, what does that mean for me?
What is your business birthday? Like, when is it?
I would have to go back and look on Instagram, but I think it's June something is when I like
Oh, okay.
officially launched, because I had like I think I did like a shoot first and then another style shoot, and was essentially trying to get my own stuff to like have on my website and things like that.
Yes.
Um, and so I was like, I did like a soft launch essentially, because I think this day, April 4th, is when that feature came out, when I was in that shoot that I worked on was in Style Me Pretty, which was like
Oh,
I was
wow.
featured in a
Yes.
publication where when I hadn't even officially launched my business yet, which was
I remember
crazy.
that.
And I remember I kind of rushed to get my website up because I just wanted something to be able,
Something.
like, for the SEO of it all, basically. And then after that was essentially just like landing page, and then worked for a couple of months on actually building everything out, and then had an official launch on, whatever day in June.
Yeah, that is just wild. And your growth just seems so fast to me. And I don't know if it's because I'm just like so close to you or like I've seen it all like
Mhm.
grow. It just seems so fast. And I think it is because of how good you are with marketing and your ideal client. So I did want to ask you because I think a lot of people are going to be like, how did you do it? You didn't know anything about business. You didn't know anything about marketing. You maybe knew a little bit just because of like the last job you had, but even during that job, like how did you start learning all of this stuff? Because it had to come from somewhere. It wasn't just like, oh, you just knew this automatically. Like people have
Sure.
to learn these things. So it's just like, where did you get all this knowledge?
Yeah, I think just kind of again through like connecting the dots through the various jobs I've had and like my background and everything. I think a lot of it was just through it all, like in a wider sense, like learning what I didn't want to do. I think
Okay.
was kind of like the biggest like way that I was able to guide myself into like what I wanted to do, how I wanted to run my business, how I wanted to market myself, what I wanted, my perspective to be, and things like that. And think back to times when I was doing something that like either like didn't feel like aligned with me, or was like a type of, client interaction that was like, oh, I don't want to have that type of interaction in the future. Or also thinking about, you know, what kind of life that I wanted to have, like moving forward, what I could do to allow myself to have that. And also like not being like ashamed of that in a way, or not being like, and this is kind of bleeding into another thing, but like, not feeling like I had to like, do the, pay my dues essentially, and just like hustle until I was burnt out, because that's what everyone else does. And so, um, like not feeling like I have to do that in order to be successful, because you don't have to buy into the hustle culture mentality starting off to like pay your dues. You don't have to do that. And I think really something that I learned from you kind of from the jump, like, is hearing you talk about this ideal client, because that was really a concept that I hadn't really thought about before. And when we met and I heard you talking so much about it, I was like, I think that's really something that I want to focus on, because I have this person here that's like teaching me so much. And if I do try to niche down with my target audience and the people that I'm speaking to, I can avoid, so many, mistakes and things like, and just not fun experiences. I can avoid those and already have like a leg up from the jump.
Yeah, yeah, that totally makes sense. And I was going to ask you too, because the ideal client you had working with this other company is like
Mm-hmm.
so much different than the ideal client that you have working for your own company. And like,
Yeah.
when did you start to like figure out like, this isn't what this ideal client isn't what I want to do, or
Mm-hmm.
isn't who I want to serve?
Mm-hmm.
And how did you kind of like distinguish that? Because a lot of people are going to be like, well, like I do want to work with everyone at the beginning, and like
Mm-hmm.
why wouldn't you want to take on those
Mm-hmm.
clients?
Yeah. And so that original company that I worked with, they were more of like a volume business anyways, because it was like a full company and there were, so many employees. So I understand from one perspective taking on more work, because that's what you'd need to do to, to pay people. And I think it was like less of a, solopreneur perspective of it. But I think part of it was the clients that I would speak to on the phone or like go to their weddings or whatever. It's tricky, because I think a lot of people say like not to get too emotional in business, and that definitely rings true in some perspectives. But as far as like the types of people you want to work with and the very like foundational things, I do think you need to listen to your emotions from the perspective of like, that is your intuition speaking, that's like trying to guide you towards or away from something that isn't going to serve you or isn't going to make you feel good like in the long run. And so,
Yeah,
a lot of these were like working with couples, but it was like only speaking to the mother of the bride and very traditional. And like there are some vendors who, for one reason or another, like that's how they work, that works for them, that's their business model, and that's great. I just knew that because of who I am and just like my my being less traditional, I didn't vibe as well with those types of situations. I never had like a bad experience. There was never anything that was like, felt like harassment or anything like that. It was just more of like a finer, like looking through a finer lens, like, is this the type of person that I want to like, be working with for 6 months to a year, communicating, and be there on their wedding day, and then see their faces and their wedding day on my screen for God knows how many hours, like
yeah.
all that. Is that someone who I want to like take on for like that much time and that much emotional, like, I don't know, processing or whatever?
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of like a relationship or a friendship.
Yeah.
It's like
Hmm.
you connect with some people and you don't connect with a lot of other people either. So
Yeah.
that's kind of like the ideal client, is seeing who you connect with and how you can serve them, because
Yeah.
you're also in a very creative
Hmm.
industry. And so, like,
Hmm.
when you don't really connect with someone, it's really hard to create a video that is like
Hmm.
very well done.
Hmm.
And
Or
I also
emotionally not charged, but like emotionally moving, I guess.
Yes, yes, exactly. And I also think that it's like a disservice to book a client that you don't really connect with, where you're always
Hmm.
where you're kind of like, like it'll be fine. But
Yeah.
then you like end up going to their wedding and you don't really like the venue, or you don't really like the
Vibe with
couple,
them.
or like
Yeah.
vibe with them. And so you're
Yeah.
really, really doing yourself a disservice and them.
Yeah.
Like, this
Because,
couple could have had a photographer that loved them, that loved the venue, that
yeah.
connected with them like in every level. Well, I guess it doesn't have to be every level, but
Mhm.
yeah, I think you're doing a disservice to yourself and to your
Yeah.
couple if you book someone that you don't really connect with.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's like kind of the hardest part starting out, is like you want to be the best person for everyone. But if you're booking those clients that, and like we've all done it, I still did, even with this mindset, I still wanted to book, clients that I maybe didn't align with because I, wanted the paycheck, or I wanted to work
Yes.
with this planner or with this other vendor, or I just wanted more bookings to be able to like give myself some credibility, is kind of what I think also what it comes down to in the beginning. Is you want to try to take on the work to then have in your portfolio and show of new potential clients that you have credibility.
Yes, yeah, that you have authority, this expertise of like working
Yeah.
with this person or working at this venue and yeah, and things like that. Mhm.
But reflecting on it, like there are people who I feel like could have had a better experience with someone else. And so that's really something that like I'm considering now. Like, is there someone that I can at least think of off the top of my head who would give these people a better experience than me, and not letting like,
Exactly.
scarcity, trying my hardest to not let the scarcity of it all like drive, the decision,
The
because it
sale.
is,
Mhm.
yeah, the sale, because it is a two-way partnership, and we have just as much of a right to say, I don't think this is going to be a good fit, as they do, even if they do inquire with you and they, on paper check all of the boxes. If you have a conversation with them and the vibe feels off, and I mean, this happened to me recently where it was fine, and then just as we got more in the trenches and the conversations and they hadn't officially booked yet, I just started getting, my ears were perking up. I felt like these small red flags were popping up, and I just got to a point where I had to step away and be like, I don't think this is going to work.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
and being okay with that, and not feeling like you're being selfish, because at the end of the day, you are going to be us as, the creatives on someone's wedding day, we are going to be pouring so much into these stories and these relationships and stuff. Like, you want to make sure that it's worth it, like it's worth the like emotional toll and the mental toll that it's going to inevitably take on you, just because we're working so hard. You want to make
Yeah.
sure that
And
it's worth
creative
it.
toll.
Yeah.
Because yeah, sometimes like I don't like working at certain venues because creatively, aesthetically, it just doesn't match with me, and I don't know how to make that work
Yeah.
creatively.
Yeah.
And I really had to learn that the hard way too. Like at the beginning of my career, like I didn't have anyone telling me like ideal client and
Hmm.
making my brand this way or that way. Like I didn't have
Yeah.
anyone. I just kind of had to learn as I went through everything. But it
Yeah.
did teach me a lot, and so now I can like speak on like my experience of like
Yeah.
how I started, because the photography and videography industry is just a tiny bit different, still the same, but
Yeah.
yeah, starting out, I was just like taking anything I could get, and like I talked about my journey in one of my podcast episodes, and I was just saying like I was doing maternity, I was doing editorial shoots, I was doing like baby shoots, like I was
Yeah.
doing everything, and I knew that I didn't vibe with some of it, but I just kept
Hmm.
taking it on because yeah, I just like wanted
Yeah.
more bookings, or I wanted more money or sales.
Yeah. And
And
sometimes that's okay. Like, I think sometimes giving yourself permission to like play around is also like encouraged in some ways, because you want,
yes, I
like,
agree.
you could discover something that you didn't know you'd enjoy, or you didn't know that you would be passionate about. But just be, maybe do that on your own time or on your own dime, or like whatever.
Yes.
Because if it's something that you are unsure about and then you don't end up liking it, you could be, locked into working with someone or on a project that you don't want to work on. And then you just got to do it, which
Yeah.
again, it still happens to, like, from time to time. And um, we're all still learning, and also we're going to change and evolve over time. So something that I like now, I might not like even in a year or something. So
Yeah.
like, having the permission, I guess, like both ways, to try new things, but within just, you like, use your best judgment on what you think is justified. And if you just like listen to your intuition, like you'll know what the answer is, even if it's hard to
Yes.
come to grips with.
Yeah, I always trust my gut. Now with wedding inquiries, I used to get very sad when people said no, or just kind of like it just felt like they were rejecting me as a person and not just like my business. And so now I've just learned like, nope, there's someone probably better out there for them. Like, and if
Uh-huh.
I were to go to their wedding, it probably wouldn't be the same vibe anyway. So I'd much rather have like another photographer photograph their wedding because I just know it's not going to be a right fit. So it's not anything on me. It's
Yeah.
just that they probably found a better fit for them. And that's exactly what we're trying to do too,
Mhm.
is like try to find the clients that are the best fit for
Yeah.
us.
And I think another thing that kind of lines up with that is like, I think especially as videographers, we get really down on ourselves because there's still so many people who don't value videography in the same way as photography, or as they just
Which
they
is
just see it as
wild.
like an add-on at the end if there's like extra room at the budget or like whatever. And I used to and still do from time to time get frustrated when people aren't seeing the value in video and how beautiful it can be and how much like it means for like your legacy and your family and just being able to show that to your kids or grandkids or family 20 years down the road, like, is so beautiful. And I used to get upset, like, and almost take it personally, like I'm not communicating my own value strongly enough. And the reality is that everyone is going to prioritize and value things differently. And at some point, like, I can position myself as the expert, I can communicate my own value and what I offer, like what my offers are. But at some point you have to learn to let go and realize that nothing you can do or say is going to change their minds. And if it is in a situation where you do change their minds, there's probably something else happening where you are like taking a loss, almost, where like you are, like, say if someone, if you're forcing yourself to work with a client and then it's like, oh well, I'll just give them this much of a discount. It's like, then like you're trying so hard to make it work and really fighting like against what I feel like should be happening. And so if you just kind of like let go of that, stand your ground and understand your value as a creative, and like there are people out there that do value what you have to offer, if you
Yeah.
just hold on a little
No,
bit
and
longer.
exactly. And it's kind of the same with photography, honestly. Like some people
Mhm.
do not value photography.
Yeah.
They will hire their cousin who does
Yeah.
like photography in high school or like,
Yeah.
Uncle Bob who has a camera. Like
Yeah.
it's a little bit different in the photography world because
Yeah.
I do agree with you. Like people will prioritize photography over videography most of the
Mhm.
time. But
Mhm.
even like when I first started, like it was really hard to even kind of like get into the industry because there were so many people doing it for free, or their cousin knew how to work a camera, or their
Mhm.
uncle, or some family
Mhm.
member. And so they weren't prioritizing photography. But at some point, I just learned like I can control my own marketing, I can control
Mhm.
my own website, I can control all of my business things, but I cannot control what they think and what they prioritize. So no matter
And
what, I'm just going to do what I do and market and brand myself. And that's all I can control.
yeah, and that is such a great point. Like, you can't, like, ultimately you can learn from every situation how, not you as the business owner, everything is your fault, but how you are, like, I guess, responsible for everything. And even if something goes sideways and, we're really frustrated that someone isn't seeing our value, then it's like, oh, sorry. Oh my gosh.
It's okay. Drink some
You
more
can,
coffee.
yeah, you're just boring me. No, but just like taking that and someone's response into account and be like, okay, there's something that I'm not communicating as effectively enough, or I'm not really targeting like the right people, or like what can I change up to make sure this happens less in the future.
Exactly.
it,
Yeah.
it, it's always like a learning opportunity to like what to refine your brand and your messaging and whatever. And even as someone like right out of the gate, I feel like I had like pretty hot takes and pretty bold, like a pretty bold perspective and like things like that. Even with that, it was still like, I was getting inquiries for this or that or whatever. And it was still like, oh, okay, I need to refine, my voice and my language and my messaging, because I'm not quite getting across what I need to get across. And also I
Yes.
will say, like, since I like originally started, my ideal client has kind of changed. And I don't know if that's something
Same.
that people really talk about.
No,
I
not at
haven't heard
all.
people really talk about it, but I think that is something that's so important to keep in mind, that it's okay if your ideal client like either changes or ends up. I think for me, it was my ideal client has ended up being something that I didn't expect, which is almost like even more beautiful, like in a way.
Same.
Um, and welcoming that opportunity with open arms instead of like fighting it, because you are obviously speaking to people who like what you do and who are willing to pay you that, and are checking all of the boxes, just maybe not like in a way that you thought. So I guess like on the flip side is like, be open to that flexibility and that change, and know that it's like, if these things are working out and it just is unexpected, welcome that, and like learn like, oh, like what if I explore this this kind of market too, or instead of, or
Yeah.
in addition to.
Yeah, well, and I think it's always changing because we're growing as
Yeah,
well. And
as
so we're
people, for
learning
sure.
new things, we're meeting new people, we're getting into like different, how do I explain this? Like different sections of the wedding market.
Hmm.
Because I
Hmm.
do think there's like sections of it where it's like
Yeah,
the luxury, and then the
yeah,
luxury even has
tears
sections of like
almost.
the
Yeah,
low, high, middle.
yeah.
And so, yeah, since we're always growing and evolving, like, of course, our ideal client is going to change. And
Hmm.
maybe at some point it might not change for a really, really long time.
Hmm.
But I did want to get into like who your ideal client was at the beginning of your business and like what it's morphed into now.
Yeah, sure. So when I was starting out, it's like something that was and still is very important to me is making non-traditional or queer LGBTQ couples feel celebrated on their wedding day. That was like a big thing for me. And also just connecting with people who wanted to do things like differently and be unconventional, because like as someone like being gay and feeling like, not in a bad way, but like I just live life in a less traditional way. And I love that about myself. And
Mm-hmm.
I want to be around people who want to celebrate their own lives in that way, who want to live their lives in that own way. And also like, want to be around me who is quirky and unconventional, and like not you like the whole like not like a quirky girl, but like just
But
like
kind
different
of.
and unconventional, conventional, and like approaching things like with a fun energy and a creative energy. So that was kind of like originally, a lot of that still stands, but what I didn't realize is that I was going to also speak to like this, almost like this subset of like, I feel like the only way I can describe it is like TikTok girlies.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
whereas like they're like really fun and they're like super into fashion, and they like,
Yes.
just like that type of vibes. They probably have like a lot of gay friends. Like they like love to go out, sometimes with their
Yes.
partners, sometimes not, have like a girls and gays night, or like, or whatever. And so I feel like I have like also started to like lean into like that aspect of it a little bit, where there's like these really cool fun couples that maybe don't identify as queer or like whatever, but they are still aligning with the fun and the unconventional and the energetic of it all. And then also having these events that are really like beautiful and elevated in a way that I didn't necessarily think I was going to be like attracted to or was going to appeal to me, but like all of these pieces that I didn't think like were ever going to exist together just like do, and it was just like such a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, that is so cool because I don't think we've talked about this before, so it's just really
Yeah.
awesome like hearing that about you.
Well, and
Um,
it's honestly like this is like the first time I'm really like verbalizing that like out loud. And there's like one very specific client from last year that I have in mind that honestly, like if I could have every wedding be that client, like my life would my life would be perfect.
yes,
Acne cured, depression cured. Like I would, like it
you
was
are
just like
that bitch
it was
now.
just yeah, it was
Like,
just like
watch
just
out.
It was like the perfect everything. The communication process was seamless. The design was gorgeous. They were so much fun. Beautiful couple. I had a blast. It was a destination wedding. Like all of the things, all of the
Yeah, that's like the perfect client. And I always tell people that too. Like when you're trying to find that ideal client, it's like think of one person. Like who have you worked
yeah,
with where you were like, holy shit, like this is my person. We could probably be friends. Like we
yeah,
vibe. We have
yeah,
so much in common. Like think of that one person, and that is who your ideal client is and
yeah,
who you're going to be marketing to and
yeah,
creating your message around. And just like every time you like post on Instagram, like think about this ideal client and like what they needed to hear, what they
yeah.
want to hear
And
about your
literally,
business.
yeah, and like literally talk exactly to that person. And if you haven't, I think for me, what was hard, and I feel like what some other people can probably relate to is like maybe they haven't worked with their ideal client yet. And I think that is the hardest spot to be in
Yes, it
because
really
it's like you're
is.
you're trying to like imagine this person that you don't know if they exist, almost like a boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever that you're
Yeah.
trying to like you want to be like your
You're like
perfect partner
manifesting.
or yeah, exactly, like literally think, get as specific as you can. And almost what I would say is like get to like a scary aspirational level, because I almost think that like the level that I was like dreaming up this ideal client originally was too attainable.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like in some ways it was like I got there really quickly, and then it was like, okay, that was surprising. So I would like encourage people, if they're like figuring out or trying to hone in on their ideal client, like really go big and go aspirational. If you haven't worked with that ideal client yet, like think of like a celebrity that like, oh, they are like them as a person. Like if the type of person like Zendaya, for instance, if she is like the type, like the perfect vibe for you, like okay, cool, like then let's say she's like your ideal client. What does she like to wear? Where does she, what kind of coffee shop does she like to go to? What is her ideal, like what does she do on an ideal Saturday? Like really be like so aspirational about it and shoot really really high, because you will probably reach your goals a lot fast. You will
Faster.
surprise yourself, and you're
Yes.
gonna really reach your goals faster than you thought
Well,
possible.
and before we started this call, I was talking to you about this book that I had been reading. It was, I think it's called Energetic Selling and Marketing. And they were kind of talking about
Put it in the show
how,
notes.
yeah, I know, I don't even know the author's name. Like, I just started, it was crazy. I was like, wow, the stars aligned for me too. Cause I was like, I don't know what to read. This sounds good. And I just started reading and I was
I
like
love that.
blown away.
I love
And I
that.
actually lost my train of thought. I don't even know where I was going with that.
So
But
you were reading that book.
this is why I hate having ADHD because now I'm
I
already on a
interrupted you.
different topic in my head. But okay. So like getting into the energy of already having this like ideal client and like visualizing it and like
Uh-huh.
knowing this is who your ideal client is will get
Hmm.
you there faster than
Yeah.
if you weren't already visualizing it and like already being in the energy of like I'm going to get there, like
Hmm.
I'm going to get
Hmm.
there no matter what, and
Yeah.
not being in that energy of like, oh well, it's never going to happen, like it's going to take me
Hmm.
10 years to get there, like I've seen other people it takes longer, or like just kind of
Hmm.
like comparing your story to someone else when really
Hmm.
you should just be focusing on yourself and who you are.
Yeah.
And I was also going to say that most of the time, your ideal client is a reflection of who you
Yes.
are.
100%.
A lot of the
100%.
people that book me have a dog, love coffee. What do I
Hmm.
love? I love dogs. I love
Yeah.
coffee.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're not a reflection of every single part of you because a lot
Yeah.
of my clients are actually very religious. Like they
Hmm.
usually get married in a church or they're
Hmm.
just, I don't know, they're just more religious than I am. Well, I'd
Hmm.
say like I'm not even religious at all, but
Hmm.
I love those types of clients. Like
Hmm.
they just have a
Hmm.
vibe and it's a different type of I don't know. They don't always have to be exactly like you, but most of the time it's a
Yeah.
reflection of who you are and what you like.
Yeah. And probably like they aren't going to like, they're not going to be like a clone of you, but they're
Yeah.
going to have like, because that's where the connection comes in, like with you and the client, is like you have this common ground that you can talk about or like make jokes about. Like the client that I have in my mind for like this whole like TikTok girly, like whatever,
Yes.
is because we like literally on her wedding day, we were talking about this one girl that we watch on TikTok, and
I
was
see.
and has been a running joke between us. Like we are friends on Instagram. We like send each other TikToks, like videos like of this girl and whatever. And it's like those connection points that I think are so important. And I think just reinforce like when to know you're on the right track. Like if you're having that good of a time where like you feel so connected with these people, those are the instances that you should hone in on and reflect, what is it about this couple or this person that makes me so obsessed with them and want to do every wedding with them? Like what is it about that I can like pull apart as like bullet points and use that to get more of those kinds of clients?
Yeah, and use that messaging as
Hmm.
well, because I think a
Hmm.
lot of the time, at least for photographers, I'm not really well versed in the video marketing industry, but I
Hmm.
assume it'd kind of be the same. When they start marketing on Instagram, they're basically just talking about themselves. So they're
Yeah.
saying like, I love photographing weddings. I
Hmm.
love this about this couple.
Hmm.
I shoot weddings because of this and that, and like I
Uh-huh.
do this and I do that. So it's all very like I based, like very
Yeah.
ego centered marketing instead of
Yeah.
being
You based.
yes,
Because
exactly.
like just objectively, when someone is looking for a vendor for their wedding, they don't really care. It sounds bad, but they don't really care like about you. They are like, how is what you have to offer going to serve me? Because A, it's my wedding, and B, like that's just how our brains are wired as humans. Is like we're like, how is this thing going to serve me?
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, okay, yeah, you do weddings, but like,
Hmm.
what else? Like, there's
Yeah,
a billion other
yeah,
photographers, a lot of videographers, like in the industry. So, like, what
hmm,
makes you stand out? And I
yeah,
think a lot of people like miss that in their marketing.
yeah,
And so, yeah, the ideal client and the messaging, like, once you
hmm,
find that ideal client that you're visualizing, or creating and like
hmm,
speaking to them, that's where the magic happens. That's where you're gonna
yeah,
start booking more. And that's what happened to me. Like as soon as I like made that connection, it was like, holy crap, like
yeah.
light bulb moments. That's where I like really like leveled up in business.
Yeah, and I think like a great, if people are like stuck on like how to figure out like to be like talking to their ideal client, I this just kind of popped in my head, but like I was working on some website revisions just before this call, and like reflect on your reviews, like go back to your Google reviews and like
Yes. I always tell that to people.
pull out the things that people say they loved about working with you, and think like, okay, how, like if this is the, you're essentially going to like work backwards in this equation. You're going to say, okay, this is the result that they had. How did we get here? How was this originally like the problem, or whatever you want to say? How was this the problem, and how did I solve that for them? Once you figure out those pieces of the equation, you can immediately almost like pull out like one liners, and then all you essentially have to do is replace the I with
You.
you being the person that you're speaking to,
Yeah,
and say,
exactly.
you deserve someone on your wedding day who is fun and energetic and is going to want to frolic through the fields with you. Or on the
Exactly.
flip side, you deserve someone who is going to capture beautiful, timeless energy, and or beautiful, timeless portraits, and surround you with warm, welcoming, calming energy on your wedding day to help you feel peace or something. Those are just like a few things that I just like pulled out of thin air.
No, for sure. I definitely think that like just switching the I and the you will
Mhm.
help you so much,
Yeah.
especially I see that a lot on websites as well. Speaking
Yeah.
of websites, is like
Yeah.
they're just like, oh, I'm a photographer and I started like this and blah blah blah, and that's it. That's pretty much their whole
Hmm.
selling point on their website. But if
Yeah.
you're wanting to book more clients or more people that are more like your ideal clients, you have to start like kind of picking and
Yeah.
choosing like what you want to say to them and just kind of like
Yeah.
creating like a mission and
Hmm.
a messaging around what you want to do, whether it's
Yeah.
weddings or not.
And it's so hard because we want to be able to like show our personalities on our websites. Like, especially for me, I felt more connected to that than even like Instagram. But we get so like emotionally attached to want to like talk about ourselves, which is fine. You can do that in a little, a little section on your about page, but
Mm-hmm.
really like the purpose of the website is to sell to this potential client why you are a good fit for them. And the best way to do that is talking about all of the different ways that you're going to serve them, that you're going to, fix their pain points, all of the stuff. Even on your about page should still be about them.
Yes,
You can,
I
again,
agree.
you can have a little section that's like, I like coffee, I like dogs, I like going to music festivals. Like, that's
Yeah.
fine. No one is saying that you can't share your personality, because again, like, you want to have that connection and like connect with people that are on the same wavelength as you. But really leveraging how you're going to serve people on their wedding day is going to like just
Make you
show
stand
you.
out.
Yeah, it's going to
That's
make you stand
literally
out.
it. Okay, we're back. We had some tech issues. I don't know what happened, but that's fine. On to what we were saying,
Sales.
though, and websites and marketing and just like really refining your message, really. That's going to be the
Mhm.
biggest thing. That, like, when I first started, I didn't know any of this. Like, of course, I was
Yeah.
just kind of like, oh, I love photography, and this is why you should book me because I love photography. That was like
Yeah.
basically it. And all of my like Instagram captions and like my website was that. And even like I remember my first website was literally just my portfolio. No
Yeah.
words, just like pictures of like things
Yeah.
that I took. And at some point, like that's just not gonna sell your it's just not gonna sell. That's it. Like
Mhm.
at some point you're gonna get to like wanting to book clients that are going to pay you a little bit more, and that's just not going to work.
Yeah.
Like just showing your portfolio isn't going to sell them
Mhm.
on you.
Yeah. And something that you mentioned a few minutes ago, when you were like, I don't know how this is, with videographers, with the I versus you thing, I almost think we do it more, because I feel like compared to photography, a lot of things in the videography uh, realm still very much feel like the Wild West. Because like, I mean, wedding videography really started getting popular like 10 years ago. And like, how many decades have we had, wedding photography? And
Mm-hmm.
so I think it's still the Wild West, because people don't know. It's like all of these, guys who do broadcast journalism in college, and then they decide to do wedding videography like on the side, and they think that like the skills they have in whatever they did are going to sell them, or they think that like them having a drone is going to sell them. And like, depending on the type of wedding, like maybe, but like as you do get higher, in budgets and things like that, people are investing in you as a person, and they want to feel confident in the person that they're investing in, with their money and with their time, and trusting you on their wedding day to like to do it right. And so again, I just think like having this you messaging is really tough, and I'm constantly refining. To jump back to my website a little bit, I'm towards the end of like the redesign, and I'm going to have to go back through and like update all of my copy, because I try to be ruthless with it, with like on myself, because I want it to be as not about me as possible. And it's
Yeah.
really hard
And
to it's really hard to separate those things because we get so attached to the things that we're saying and the things that we're sharing on our website, but really just getting in the mindset of being as ruthless as possible and always bringing it back to like, is this going to speak to my client? Is this going to serve them? Like whatever, that will, I think, keep you pretty on track.
And I think, or I wonder if it's because a lot of the time when we get into videography or photography, we're not really thinking of it as a business yet. And it's
Mm-hmm.
almost just kind of like either a side hustle or, you know, you do start the business, but you're still not thinking of it like a business and like
Yeah.
how you would market to people, how you would sell to people. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like when you're a creative, you don't want to be a salesperson. You're like, this isn't what I
Yeah.
signed up for. This isn't like what I want to do.
Yeah.
I want to be the creative. But like, if you're going into business, if you want to make money, you kind of have to start thinking of it as a business and not something that's
You do
creative.
have, that's the only way that you're going to make money. And people feel so like they get like these really weird feelings about having to sell, but that's the reality of if you're going to make money. And the more money you want to make, the better you have to be at selling. And I think that's a whole different conversation, and there's other podcasts about that and stuff. But like, as someone who is really uncomfortable with it, you can find ways to make it work within yourself and within your body that like feels good and doesn't feel like you are being like a slimy car salesman, and selling in a way that feels aligned with like your values too.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely do think that a lot of creative people do not like selling because of
Mm-hmm.
that mindset of being like, oh, well, I don't want to sell like my services. I don't want to be like the used sales guy that's just like pushing and
Mm-hmm.
pushing and pushing you to
Yeah.
like get this product that you don't even want and just kind of like almost like manipulating you into like buying
Yeah.
something that you don't need or want.
Yeah.
But just kind of like switching that perspective to just being like, not being a salesperson, but just telling someone like about the experience they're going to have with me. Like
Yeah.
it's almost like if you were to tell someone about your favorite movie, that's
Mm-hmm.
exactly the same way you should see like selling in
Yeah.
your business. Like you're telling this person like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I love this movie, blah, blah, blah. And you're selling this
Yeah.
movie is what you're
Or
doing. Like
even,
you're like, you
or
have to
even,
watch this.
or even better, you're trying to convince like your friend or your partner or whoever to watch this movie with you that you really love. And you're trying to sell
Exactly.
them on that movie and like why the movie is so good. And you're doing it from a place that is like true because you're like, you're
Because
being
you love it
honest.
that
Like,
much.
yeah. Yeah.
And that's what your business selling should feel like. You're like, I love my business. I love doing what I do. And I want to share it with the world and to the right people. And so that's what I'm going to
Yeah.
do. I'm literally just telling people how much I love doing this and how I can help them solve whatever problem you're solving for them. And so just
Mhm.
kind of like switching that perspective is everything.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that was good.
I love
That
it.
was a good little riff on
That
selling,
was
actually.
so good. And kind of like one more thing on kind of like the messaging portion of this, and I'll start to wind it down and stuff. But I think like something that is so important to do and really helpful is finding brands that you love and like, okay, why did this company, why did I buy this thing from them? And like, I know people will use like Apple or Google or Starbucks, but I feel like those are so big that those are almost like hard to even begin to draw comparisons. So like, look at smaller brands like, I don't know, like things that I don't even necessarily buy, but I just like love their messaging and their brand is like things like Trixie Cosmetics or things like Tushy. I think Tushy, like the little bidet or whatever, is so
Yes.
like funny and like relatable. Like I think their stuff is just so like full of humor and full of fun. And it's like how could you have been the person dreaming this up and thinking like, oh, we're gonna make like going to the bathroom like a funny, laughable, like relatable thing. Well, here they are on like every YouTube ad and doing really good, and their advertising is amazing and their messaging is amazing, and they are doing exactly what they set out to do.
Exactly. And seeing how they're selling it
Yeah.
as well,
Hmm.
because that's where a lot of people get stuck is like the selling. And I agree with you with looking at different brands and how you even land on their Instagram page. Like, how did you
Hmm.
find them? Like, why did you follow them in the
Hmm.
first place? It wasn't
Hmm.
because they were just talking about
Their
how they
products.
started the company.
Selling is so much more than just selling your products. And if you're doing it right, like if you're just talking about your business, you're still selling, and it shouldn't even feel like selling to you or to the person that's watching or listening.
Exactly. Yeah. It doesn't always have to be like, go inquire or buy package one for
Yeah.
this. Like it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
that way always. Like you can have that
Hmm.
sometimes, but most of the time it's just going to be like what I call like soft selling, which is just kind of like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm at this wedding, or I'm doing this for this couple, or I'm working on editing. And that's kind of,
Hmm.
you're still selling because you're just showing
Hmm.
them like that you are doing this for a living, that you're working and just kind of showing them
Hmm.
that you are the expert. Like you're doing all this stuff, going to
Hmm.
weddings, you're showing them that you're going to weddings. So yeah,
Hmm.
definitely. Mm-hmm.
You're telling people what to do and what not to do at their own wedding. Like you're doing so many things because like I mean they say that like people need to see something like 7 times before they purchase from you or whatever. And like that is like you can't, I think that's minimum. I think that would be a bare minimum. And so like if you're like, oh well, like people have to see me so many times before they're going to even so say like inquire, like I can't just sit and talk about inquire 7 times. Like I have to show them like all of these different perspectives and things that I'm doing and what their this wedding day looks like, and what like working with me looks like, and even just something funny if I make a TikTok and it's like a Real Housewives reference or a Drag Race reference or a reference to a podcast that I know my ideal clients like the girls that get it, and the girls that don't.
Exactly. You have to build a connection first. Like you just have
Yeah.
to build that connection. It's going to be
Yeah.
really hard for you to sell to someone that doesn't even know who you are, what you
Or
do,
trust you. Yeah.
or trust you. And I always say like these people are trusting a stranger on the internet. Like if they haven't seen
Yeah.
you in real life, like working, they are trusting a
Yeah.
stranger on the internet, and
Hmm.
you're trying to charge what, like almost like $5,000. And so they
Yeah.
have to trust you. You have to build
Yeah.
that connection for them to spend
Yeah.
that type of money on you.
Yeah. And it's like I think I'm the ultimate culprit of like when you go into a store, and because I've been on both ends of it, when you go into a store and Crate and Barrel, and you're just like browsing and someone comes up to you, can I help you with anything? I'm like, no, I don't need your help. Like, stop trying to sell me something. I don't know who you are. I don't trust you. I just want to do my own thing, like on my own, which is a whole other thing. But
Exactly.
but that's like, I think that's the reality of like trying to cold sell to a stranger. That's the same reaction that they're having on your visual storefront on your Instagram page or your website.
Exactly.
If you're trying to do it in a way that isn't organic and isn't building trust, that's the exact reaction that they're going to have.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree. That's so funny. I haven't even thought about it like that, but that's how I think of like cold messaging. Like, I think there
Yep.
are people that kind of like say that you should cold message or you shouldn't cold
Yeah.
message. And
Yeah.
I'm not a believer in cold messaging at all for
I
anything.
I listened to a
At all.
podcast last week where it's two videographers, and one of them, she does like commercial videography, and one of them, she does wedding videography. And the girl who does commercial was talking about how she cold cold messages for like business, like commercial stuff, which obviously like within the wedding industry it would be a little different because it's like, so you're going to track down a random couple and send them like a cold DM, like that's so weird. And like in different like parts of the industry or whatever, like I think it makes sense or whatever. But yeah, I feel
But that
like,
also goes into like, if something doesn't feel right to you, do not do it. To
yeah,
me, like I think even if I was working in another industry, I wouldn't cold message. Like
yeah.
it just doesn't feel right to me, and
Hmm.
so I'm not going to do it. So that just goes into a whole different conversation of like just
Yeah.
trusting yourself. Like
Hmm.
if you like stumble upon a strategy and you're like, don't really, that doesn't really sit with me, and you try to do it, it's never going to work.
and the amount of times that I've come to you complaining about Instagram or like trying this or like not liking it or like whatever, and the amount of times you're just like, then don't do it. Like it's like that's all you need. You don't need to like do something just because everyone else is doing it. And they say like you see all of these BS like TikToks about how I gained 10,000 followers in a month, like whatever. Like at the end of the day, you're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, and it's gonna be like pulling teeth to try to get yourself and to motivate yourself to like do it, when in reality maybe something like, I don't know, like instead of doing Instagram, maybe just making TikToks works better for you, or doing like Pinterest and blogging and SEO, like that kinds of stuff. Maybe that is what's going to work for you instead. It's a trial and error process, but just because one way works for some people, A, doesn't mean it's going to work for you, and B, doesn't mean you have to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. There is a million ways to market your business. Like there is so many ways to, show up on different platforms and everything. You just have to pick one, try it out. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. Try something new. But at least try to do it. I think a lot of people like start doing it and they're like, oh my god, I only got like 2 likes on this post, I'm gonna quit everything, this isn't like ever gonna work. And I just think that they stop too soon sometimes. But yeah,
and
if it doesn't feel right in the first place, then just don't do it.
Yeah, and that's another lesson that like I need to learn, is like to just like keep up with stuff regardless of like if I'm not seeing the results that I wanted, because that's kind of how it goes. I mean, the better you are and the more consistent you are, the more results you're going to see. I know there's a lot of conversation about like, the whole like verified thing on Instagram right now, like paying for that, whatever. Like marketing is at the end of the day, I feel like marketing is marketing, and do what you want to do. Try it. Keep trying it, even if you feel good about it, but you're still not seeing what you want. Like, don't get discouraged. Also, this is advice that I need to take upon myself.
Sometimes we just got to say it out loud to ourselves.
Exactly. But like at the end of the day, just like finding what you like to do again is probably going to find its way to the people that you're trying to reach.
Yes, I totally agree with all of that, because that is something I think that a lot of people do struggle with, is like trying to find a strategy. And some people are doing way too much with the time that they have, and like they're doing stuff that they don't even like to do, but they're doing it, and then they're getting discouraged because they don't like doing it, and they're also not seeing results from it. So it's just kind of like a lose-lose situation. So just try finding something that you like to do, and sometimes you just have to shift your perspective in a lot of things as well. Like a lot of people hate Instagram, and I'm like, oh my god, I love Instagram. Like it's a free marketing tool, like why would you not love it? And so just like switching that mindset, like I can't even imagine like back in the day before Instagram having to go like door to door every day and trying to like market my business in a way that they were doing it before the internet.
Or have to always go to those like wedding expos.
Yes, exactly. And
like,
that would,
like that.
I thrive online, so I can't even imagine like trying to do that every single month, or like, knocking door to door, like, hey, are you getting married?
And there's also so many ways of like doing one platform that are so different. Like you and I do Instagram completely differently. Like something that you are so good about is posting regularly on your feed, or like posting reels. And I don't really love those things, but what I love to do more than anything in the world is get on stories and run my mouth.
Yes, I love that.
And like, I love talking to people, because like, I feel like I'm like having a conversation with them, and I can like be 100% like myself. And like, it took some adjusting, but like, just like talking about my day, or like moving, or my dogs, or whatever, like people love that, because in that instance it does give them a glimpse into your life and who you are as a person, and that's again what they're connecting with, is you as a person.
Yeah, you're building that connection, because once you build that connection, once they trust you, they're like, Like, let me
Yeah.
go check out their website. And then they're
Yeah.
being sold to you with this like beautiful message and like your mission and like what you do
Hmm.
at wedding days. And then they inquire because they trust you so much. You have already
Hmm.
built that connection. So when you build that connection and it's that strong, when they inquire, they're usually 90% going to book you because of
Yeah.
how strong that connection is. And that's the
Yeah.
kind of clients that you want to inquire with you, is like those people that you have built this like strong connection to. And you may not know that they're following you, because a
Hmm.
lot of the time my clients never like a photo of mine, never
Yeah.
reply to a story, never DM
Hmm.
me. They come out of nowhere and they're like,
Yeah.
I love what you
And they
do.
don't even follow you.
They
Yeah.
don't
I don't
even
know if that's
follow
something
you.
that,
It is
yeah.
crazy. Yeah. And so just reminding yourself that there are like silent followers of
Yeah.
yours that are getting married in the future, are watching you, are just like
Yeah.
may not like any of your posts, but they are watching. And so when
Yeah.
you get discouraged that you only got 30 likes on a post, that's okay, because probably like 99% of the time your ideal client isn't even liking your own post.
Yeah.
But
And
they're
also
reading it.
like,
They're busy
yeah.
reading it and engaging with it, you know?
And I think part of it is just like, this might be pessimistic, accepting that the algorithm is kind of broken anyways, and then just doing it. I think it's more than anything, it's like freeing in some ways, because I think it's in some ways gives you permission to like, well, that, this isn't going to get, this isn't going to go viral anyway, so I might as well like release that pressure off of myself and just post something, post or share something that is true, and I don't feel bound to like appeal to any certain group or whatever because I have, this many followers, or I expect to get this many likes.
Yeah, exactly. And I can't even tell you the last time I thought about the algorithm, when I got
Hmm.
updates on the algorithm. Like, I literally don't care, because I
Yeah.
just have so much faith in like the content that I'm posting. Like, the right people will see it. And if
Hmm.
they don't, that's okay, because I'm going to keep posting until they
Yeah.
see it.
Yeah. Period.
Period. Per. That was a riff. I love it. I love when we get into these conversations, because our
Yeah.
conversations are just always so freaking good. And I always wish that I had like a recording device on us, because
Yeah.
our
We need our
conversations
own reality TV show.
are always just so good. But
Cameras following us around.
no, literally.
One thing that I meant to mention earlier that like you and I like did to an extent, just really quickly, was when you're talking about manifestation. It's like, I would encourage people to like create a vision board of the type of clients and weddings they want to do, and make it
Yes.
really crazy. It can be a Pinterest board if you want. I really thrive with literally like finding magazines and cutting them out and pasting them to something. Like, I had a whole date night with Kim where I went to Barnes and Noble and bought a bunch of magazines and just cut things out. It wasn't for ideal client, but you can do a vision board for anything. And I think going back to getting really specific, like create a vision board of the types of weddings and people you want to work with, and get really specific about it. And that will just reinforce and put that energy out there yet again of like what you are working towards, and it will help keep you inspired in times when you feel discouraged.
Yeah. And also, just if you don't have an idea of like who your ideal client is, just start where you are. Like, even if you've
Mm-hmm.
done free shoots, like, who did you like to work with? And
Mm-hmm.
if you have done a wedding, like, who did you really like to work with on that wedding day? And kind of start where you are and go from there, because I know it
Mm-hmm.
is kind of hard to visualize, like, I don't know if I'm going to like this client or not. But just start where
Or
you are,
second shooting with
because
people.
exactly. Yeah. Just start
And
where
you
you
can,
are and go from there, because
yeah.
that's kind of like how I found my ideal clients. Like, I wasn't even looking for them. They were coming to me because of the ideal client that I already had. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
had booked ideal clients just based on the weddings that I had already booked, and they were nothing alike. But it was because I
Mm-hmm.
was like posting on Instagram and marketing and just talking to my ideal client in that way. Like, these other people found me through that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So then when you find that other ideal client, you're like, okay, this is it. And you just go from there.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh my gosh. Well, that was so good, Alex. Is there any
Thanks,
any
Kim.
advice you would give people that are starting their business or wanting to start a business? Is there any advice that you would give to them? Like anything that you wish you had heard at the beginning of your business?
I would probably say, I'm sure they've probably heard this everywhere, but even if you haven't, like, don't post something that you don't want to book, or don't share something, don't have imagery of the types of things that you want to book, even if you feel like that cuts away at like what you're going to be able to share or post or use in your marketing or whatever. Because I feel like more often than not, like, it may take longer to find those ideal clients, but then if you're posting things that you aren't as excited about, I feel like those things come in droves, and then you're overwhelmed with work that you don't want to share. So like, really, just I know it's hard, and I know we all feel like a lot of pressure to post a lot, but really just be very specific and very objective about making sure what you're sharing and putting on your website and things like that really aligns with the type of weddings you want to do and the type of couples you want to work with, or clients you want to work with, not even weddings. Like, really just be very disciplined about sharing those things, because I promise you, like, the clients that like your vibe and want you, they will find you. But also,
Yes.
if you're
And that
posting work that you don't want to book, those people will also find you,
you're just
usually faster,
attracting
or yeah.
them. Yeah. And that
Yeah.
also just goes back to just saying no to things you don't want to do. Like
Yeah.
if your gut is telling you this is a no, then don't go for it. Like the
Yeah.
inquiry, the client has to be like a yes, like a full body
Yeah.
yes, because then it is
Yeah.
going to be that no. And you're going to be like, I don't want to do this. And then that's all the content that you get to post. Like you don't have anything
Hmm.
else. So I agree. And also do some
Yeah.
style shoots, because that's kind of
Yeah.
like how you can get into that as well. And I know
Yep.
there's a lot of controversy over styled shoots and like whatever,
Whatever.
but
If
I think
anything,
they're great.
do style shoots, whether it's like a shootout or you're putting one on for yourself, because if you're doing a shootout, it lets you connect with like other vendors and photographers and people
And
like
you'll meet
that. And
someone like me, like Alex
if
did.
you're doing well, and if you're doing one like you, like on your own, it allows you to curate the vibe to be exactly what you want. And you don't have to be like,
Exactly.
oh, well, this isn't exactly like what I want. You can curate it to a T, and it can be the most feel your fantasy, like do whatever you want to do with that, especially if you're doing your own.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, it was so good talking to you. I feel like we could talk for another 3 hours. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
we always
Exactly.
have the best time talking to each other. But all right, well, that is it for today. And I will see you guys on the next episode.
Thanks, Kim. Thanks for having me. Bye.
Bye.